closer towards the drainage line from that junction. Negative south. And it is very humid today. It's 26 degrees Celsius. Oh, and I've forgotten the Fahrenheit now. 69 if I remember correctly. And there's a really 79, sorry. There's a really, really big thunderstorm building directly to the west. I'll turn the vehicle now so you can have a look. We're hoping it stays away for the safari, but that is not drizzle, that is proper rain. It is darkening the sky. Not going to be much of a sunset through that wall of cloud. So there we go. Look at that. There's the sun and there's that wall of cloud. So very humid at the moment. So make sure we drink our fluids. And let's go see what we can find towards the east and the north. So we've got, those who've been watching for quite a while know I really love tracking and really love tracking on foot and generally walking into anything that's possibly big, hairy and scary. And Matthew, who's 9 years old, was like, so what is the most fun for me to track on foot, lions or leopards? I would say, oh, it's such a difficult question, Matthew. Both are equally wonderful. They both present sort of different types of walks almost. Leopard are a lot sneakier, so quite often you'll only see them when you're really close to them when you're tracking them. Lions you quite often see from quite far away, but sometimes they can sort of growl at you a little bit, and so do leopard occasionally. Oh, there's Taxon. There's a guy, I think, I also went to Manuleti side. Or they got chased by a Ndlov. Yes. And then there was one Ndlov, but he's heading towards Sibambil.
Do you know what happened to that Natasha?
They went west.
Oh,
so I haven't heard of them coming back. I think they went into Ottawa. Yeah. Hi everyone, enjoy your afternoon. Okay, so morning, afternoon meeting over. We're going to carry on. See what else we can find. Tax is going to go double check behind the damn wall for the Salala Pride. That's Salala Pride. So I'll be listening carefully. But to finish off Matthew's question, Matthew, as I said, they both present really different things. I love tracking them both on foot. But I think for me, my most favorite animal to actually spend a lot of time with on foot has got to be a nice big Ellie bull. And Stacy, while we're talking about lions and leopards and things, is wondering if there's any word on the Birmingham boys. Well, Stacy, last I heard they crossed south into Londolozi. Maybe they're off after the Matimbas, so in that direction down there. They disappeared towards the Sand River. So we're going to cross to Commander Bond, or James, who's managed to lose the tallest animal in the bush. So he can just tell you how he managed to do that.
Hello everyone. Here we sit behind my favorite grass out here, the yellow thatching grass, Hypothelia dissoluta. You don't need to remember that. I just quite like to remember it because I feel it makes me sound clever. Hypothelia dissoluta. And in summertime it will be a beautiful golden yellow colour when the culms come up. These are the culms or stalks from last year, and they're from the last rainy season, and you can just see over here some of the plants are starting to flush. Now, there are two interesting things about this. The first is that when people talk about grass being eaten by animals, it's important to note that once a grass gets to this stage, this kind of strawy stage, it's almost hopeless for grazing. It's this leaf matter at the bottom here that animals eat, that they like to eat, and it's this kind of long piece of green grass that a buffalo specifically would get a hold of. A grazer that eats short grass, like a wildebeest or even an impala, would struggle to eat this kind of stuff, and you'd have to have a seriously efficient digestive system to eat this kind of dry material here. So that's the yellow thatching grass. Then the other thing to note is that, interestingly, we were talking about the ages of some of those round-leaf teak trees today. Grass plants can become incredibly old, and I'll show you how. Remember that if we take, let's go over this to this one here, to this clump. This grass plant here exists only like this, right, as a clump. Now, if I split this in half and take one piece away, okay, and so that it effectively becomes two grass plants. Remember, those plants are genetically identical, so they're actually the same individual, even though it's split in half. Now, if that continues to happen, you can imagine that one plant could have spawned, it's not quite clones of itself, but it's actually little pieces of itself that have grown in perpetuity. This whole clump of Hypothelia dissoluta grasses here could very well be the same individual. Now, that's quite difficult to fathom, but all of them could be from the same original clump that came into this area, and who knows how old that could be. So little pieces of it could die off, and then another piece could grow up again, and it'll be this genetically identical to the original parent plant. So we think of grasses as very short-term lived organisms. Maybe not so much. Here's a fly, Brian. Now, I'm not going to get too close to it because it will fly away, as flies do. Can you see it? Now just look at the detail on that little fly. That's a pretty bog standard issue fly, I think. I'm not too good on my flies, but I think that's the kind of fellow who will fly around your face and create a general level of great irritation. And the reason, it's two flies. They seem to be caught in the act, in flagrante delictum. Look at that. Mating flies, everybody. There's something you do not see on television every day. In fact, you don't even see it off television every day. Good heavens. Not sure I'm happy about them mating, because it means they're going to make more of themselves. Isn't that amazing? They've actually got some really pretty colours too. No wonder they didn't fly off. They were otherwise occupied. So you may be able to see on them some really gorgeous colours. Golden sort of abdomen, maroon eyes, big eyes, of course, the flies have, compound eyes that have an extremely fast flicker response, and that means that they're able to see things. Basically, they see things just a lot faster than we do, and that's why you can never hit one. Well, you can if you're really fast, but if you just try and pick one up, and unless you're Mr. Miyagi or the Karate Kid, they're quite difficult to get hold of. Very different from leopard mating, less aggression, less growling, and certainly I think probably doesn't last as long as 5 days like the mating process of the leopards. They probably just do a thorough job first time round. And let's see how close in we can get to them. The male, I'm assuming the male, is on top, and their abdomens are touching. He's kind of bent his abdomen all the way around so that I suspect the wastage and sexual opening is exactly the same thing, and he's bent his abdomen round so that they are touching, and he's actually much bigger than she is. Isn't that astonishing? They're not moving at all. wonder if they know they're being observed by thousands of people around the world. Probably not. Gee whiz. I inhaled some dust. All right, we'll leave you chaps to it. Enjoy. Well, we won't see you later probably. We might squash you later, but we won't see you later. Okay, let's press on. Brent Leo Smith has managed to find his new best friend out here, a large mammal, very large elephant. We'll send you across to him, and we'll keep looking for these giraffe that were supposed to be here and are not. See you just now.
So we found an old friend from the last few days, and as James is saying, my new best friend, well, he's definitely far better company than a short, balding man. And he is so wonderful. We will stay with him for a little bit. He's back to this fallen down marula, and he's crunching up all the small branches. And thanks, Joe, for keeping an eye on him for me on the Juma cam. Such a distinguished gentleman he is. Not dozing this time. Listen to that. Crunching through that little marula branch. Oh, this is... I'm in heaven, just sitting here with my new best friend. So nice to have some big bulls around. And he's definitely had a mud bath during the heat of the day, and I'm sure you guys would have been watching him on the Juma cam while he did that. You can see there. And don't forget, guys, if the storm doesn't get us, there will be fireside chat this evening, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about wild dogs. So if you've got any questions about wild dogs, you can send them through to Final Control now. And you can do that by using the hashtag SafariLive, or use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. We seem to have quite a few new viewers, so guys, if you're not sure what a fireside chat is, every now and then we'll get together and we'll put a fire out on this open clearing, and hopefully my new friend might join us for fireside chat this evening. And we'll just chat a bit about some interesting sightings or interesting behavior that we've seen in the last week. And also, we'll be treated to James playing the guitar and singing. And with my complete tone deafness and lack of musical talent, I generally just sort of bob my head along. Occasionally James will give me a shaker, or otherwise I just make strange noises. Oh, listen to that crunch. And as I said, he looks a little bit muddy, and Dr. Debbie says, has a little comment, Brent's buddy looks a little muddy. It'll be so fantastic if he does hang around for a week or so. Can't really ask for more than that. But 2 days now? 3 days? 2 days?
3, I think.
2 days, 2 or 3 days that he's been around our camp. Last night he was feeding, and I could hear him feeding in front of my room. Flapping those ears to cool down. So between the 2 ears, you can have just under 2 gallons of blood, and cooling it and then sending it through to the rest of the body. And that's one of the ways an elephant thermoregulates. And he has demolished that little branch. So even some trees are too tall or too big for an elephant to get at. He's got to wait for them to fall down. And you can see there, an elephant stripped the bark over there, and then wood borer beetles went in and slowly rotted and sort of compromised the structure of that marula tree till it toppled over. And now I've seen elephants, kudu, and impala taking advantage of these leaves being lowered to the ground. Oh, he's going to break the branch. I mean, he snaps those branches like they're toothpicks. So, not only do elephants eat marula bark, leaves, branches, they have a particular affinity for their fruit. And Lynn in Ontario, Canada, and that, if you heard that, was a flatulent elephant. And is wondering, when do the marulas come into fruit, and why do they love them so much? Well, they come into fruit, probably first ones will be maybe middle of January, more than likely February through to March, and they have a very high vitamin C count. And not only is the flesh of the fruit very good, there's a very lovely nut inside the seed that's also quite tasty. And I think elephants love them because they are tasty. There is an old wives' tale or tall story that elephants and other animals get drunk on marula fruit. That is not true. That was perpetrated by a South African filmmaker in the 70s or 80s, I can't remember when, a man by the name of Jamie Ace. And he also made some movies that some of you might have heard of, called The Gods Must Be Crazy. And the movie where the drunk animals were in was called Beautiful People. And there were drunk baboons, drunk impala, and drunk elephants. And fortunately, they weren't drunk from marula. They had been slightly sedated. Obviously, in terms of the ethics of the movie industry, has come a long way since those days. I don't think you'd get away with drugging an elephant for a movie anymore. And it was quite a common misconception, because that movie was very popular internationally. And some scientists actually went, and Makai's keeping the bark there. He's peeled the bark and he's storing it in the little nook of his trunk. Or he's keeping that branch there for when he's ready for it. And so some scientists did some actual research. So a marula fruit would have to be ripe on the ground and in the sun to start fermenting, so to speak. And it would have to be on average, I think, on the ground for something to have a reasonable alcohol content for something like 10 or 12 days. and it's very, very seldom that a marula fruit is left, as it's popular with all the animals, and so they're very seldom left on the ground. And the elephant, because they are so small, the marula fruits and the elephants would have to eat something like over 2 tons of fruit to become drunk, and it all would have to be fruit that had been sitting for the exact right time in the sun. And elephants do eat a lot. I mean, about, I think 200 to 250 kilograms of vegetable matter in a day, but that is still a far cry from 2,000 kilograms. So not something you get to see too often is the tongue of an elephant. And Tippy in a Blue Ridge is wondering, what is the use for a tongue in an elephant? Well, Tippy, that's a very interesting question. Not one I've actually thought of, but I would assume it has very similar uses that it does in most other mammals. It is a taste organ, so to be able to taste if things are good or bad, coupled with their incredible sense of smell. I'm trying. There we go. And look, he doesn't want that piece. I'm going to store it there. I want to go for the other piece. There we go. So, actually, really nice with this boy. We can actually look at that. So you see his prehensile tip. You see there's 2 little tips either side, sort of like tweezers almost, that can pick up things. And the Asian elephant doesn't have that. It's only got 1 little prehensile tip. So I think we're going to leave this boy to his decimation of this fallen marula, and we're going to go see what Commander Bond's up to. I think he's finally managed to find the tallest land mammal in the world. From his inferior height, sometimes it is a bit difficult.
Sorry, just excuse me 1 sec, everybody. I have been speaking for 10 seconds. Confirm delay is now enormous. Excuse me 1 second, sorry about that. Okay. Hello everybody, again. I'm not sure if you heard the first hello. We were looking at some giraffe. I don't know if you saw them or not. They've just walked off there. Let's carry on and see if we can find them. While we're doing that, Wendy in St. Petersburg, Florida, which sounds like a lot warmer place than its namesake. Wendy, you want to know how many different species of these magnificent tall animals we have? Species at this time. Sometimes these sorts of things, and they get themselves into a big twist over what constitutes a subspecies and what doesn't. And at the moment, here, the giraffe just through there, we may get a gap further down here. At the moment, Wendy, 9 of them. We only get 1 here, and that's the southern giraffe. 3 of them up in Kenya. Alright, I know the signal is a little bit bad here, so what we're going to do is just move a little bit forward. I'll be quiet and then we'll stop moving, and that should improve things.
So we're on our way. I'm just going to check through Weaver's Nest area quickly before moving back to the Moati and up towards Buffelshoek. If we get nothing there, I think I might spend some more time with the gentleman giant on quarantine. So we're not sure which leopard James was following on foot this morning, the tracks. It was a male, so in that area it could possibly be two males. It could be Tingana, or it could be Mvula, who I haven't seen for quite a while. And if it's Tingana though, he doesn't really go north of that area, so I'm going on a hunch that if it was Tingana, he might have cut back down towards the Moati drainage line. So that's why I'm heading in this direction, taking sort of the long way around to get to the Buffelshoek waterhole. See if his tracks pop out around the Moati. We have one of our regular viewers and a very special viewer to a lot of us here, Gracie, who's 8 years old, was wondering, how do elephants clip their toenails? Well, Gracie, that is a fantastic question. So they don't need to clip them like we do because they don't wear any shoes. So most animals, elephants, buffalo, nails or hooves in a lot of their cases, because they move and have to walk so far between food and water, just the wear of walking without shoes on all the time causes them to stay short. So they're lucky. We've got to sit with a pair of nail clippers, and that's because we don't wear them against the ground. So just listening to the Game Drive channel. No updates. The guys are looking for those salalas. It looks like they've crossed into the Manuletti. We've got on top of the tree, there we go, making some noise, a red-billed oxpecker, and they quite often like to nest in these dead trees. I'm just stopping to see if there's a hole that they might be utilizing. And it's chirping much better from the top of the tree.
Thanks for big. There's Ngala as they move off. Where's Ngala?
Yeah. Looks like there might be gone on that land at the eastern side of
Oh, okay, I can't see anything more. Chirpy, chirpy, chirpy. Maybe it's looking for some buffalo or... Oh, Andrew. No. It's going to land on that. Oh, it looked like it was going to land on the sage.
Copy, thanks.
Come on. No, don't come this close to us. And land. Where's it gone? You see it, Andrew?
This side.
Is it that side? Oh, there it is. Testing, Andrew. Oh, flying right at him, over my head. Come on, please land. Well, it's disappearing now, but that was an African monarch butterfly. Very, very pretty butterfly. And in North America, you also have a monarch, an American monarch, and that is the largest migration of butterfly area in the world. And it's a very interesting migration because it is a generational migration, which is incredible for me. So one generation will move this far and then die and pupate the next generation until they get across, and then they turn around and go back again. So very, very interesting. One of the few generational migrations in the world. So we were watching that Eddie really, really chew on that marula, and Rita, who's from Johannesburg in South Africa, so she said she knew elephants eat bark, but she never seen one eat wood like that. Well, and she was wondering why in particular. Well, Rita, he wasn't eating the very small pieces of wood, so a lot of that nutrients is being pumped into those little edges, and especially now after we're at the growing season now, coming into the rainy season, so a lot of the trees will be focusing quite a lot of nutrients and minerals onto the ends, those little points that are growing. So those little branchlets, they're not proper branches, will have quite a lot of juiciness in them for an elephant. Those who've been watching for a while will notice I have a pet name for hyena. I call all hyena Howard. And Julia in Houston is asking, why do you call all hyenas Howard, Brent? Well, Julia, hello. Better than telling you, since it is Fireside Chat this evening, I will show you when I get to Fireside Chat why all hyenas are called Howard to me. And a little male giraffe. There's another one behind, but you can't really see him just yet. Just having a look at us, making sure we're not posing a threat. There's so many giraffe around at the moment. When I first arrived on Juma, honestly, for the first 3 months, I think I had more leopard sightings than giraffe sightings. And at the moment, we're not having many leopard sightings, but we are having lots of giraffe sightings. And there might be a few more down behind him. And you can see this young male is particularly pale. And so there is quite a bit of variation in the individuals. Some will have darker splodges than others, but there is a tendency towards darkening, as specifically in males as they get older. And let's see who can remember where giraffe, the name giraffe, comes from originally. And if you do remember, send us the answers with the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email us questions at wildearth.tv. And don't forget to tell us whereabouts you are in the world. We love to know from which far-flung corner you might be joining us on a live African safari. So I'm going to help out Commander Bond here. Wendy from St. Petersburg in Florida was asking how many subspecies of giraffe there are. I'm just trying to remember now. I think there are probably about 7 or 8. Let's see if I can. There's the southern giraffe, which we're looking at now. There is the what's the one in the Luangwa Valley? I can't remember now. Thornycroft's giraffe, Maasai giraffe, reticulated giraffe, and Rothschild's giraffe are the 5. I think I'm missing a few though. Let's have a look if the big book's got any clues to that. Oh, where are you going? We're talking about you. It's giving a good squiz at us. Now these are definitely subspecies because all of them can mate and produce viable offspring. There we go, giraffes. Taxomic. 9 subspecies have been listed. So, and I see a lot of this book is quite old. Some of these subspecies have been proved incorrect. So theoretically, I think there are only 6 now. But so there were 2 said to be in southern Africa, which was sorry, guys. I'm gonna be on the move. I've heard something on the radio. Copy text. May I make my way?
Yeah, sure, you're welcome.
I wonder what it is. I heard it, but it's definitely something interesting enough to leave giraffe alone for. But so, there was said to be 2 subspecies in southern Africa in the 70s, but I know for a fact now that that is not the case. But I will try to remember all the species. But I think how many we get through there, Andrew? 6. Thornycroft's, Rothschild, reticulated, southern, Maasai, and one other. But so there are only 2 members of the sort of whole family giraffe, and that's all the giraffe and its subspecies. And the okapi. Okapi is one of the animals I think is very high on my bucket list to see in the wild, and incredibly difficult. It lives in probably one of the most inaccessible parts of Africa, between the Congo and the Cross River, in what was back in the day Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it is a funny looking beast, the okapi. So what we're racing to is right on our boundary, so I'm going to be going quite quickly. So while we do that, we're going to go see James and what he's got on the walk.
Okay, sorry, apparently you couldn't hear me there. Welcome back. Right, you've got me now. Excellent news. Sorry you couldn't hear me. Something went wrong. Obviously, it's not wrong anymore. Now, you don't want to be driving with Brent at a great speed because you are likely to get possibly a serious case of motion sickness. Very exciting that he's going to something exciting. I don't know what it is. But while he's doing that, we'll take a sedate look at this rather marvelous set of grass here. It is called superba, or the sawtooth lovegrass, and it's called sawtooth because obviously it's got sort of teeth, and it's called a lovegrass. All the Eragrostis species are called lovegrass because the seed inside these inflorescences is heart-shaped. Isn't that nice? And there are lots and lots of different kinds of Eragrostis species around the world, and especially here. And this one is my favorite. It's called the superba, or the sawtooth lovegrass. Right, now, you may lose a picture very slightly as Brian stands up, because the aerial will twist, and then we're going to go and right. Now, MJ, that is the second grass species we've shown you today. The other one was, of course, Hypothelia dissoluta, the yellow thatching grass. And you want to know if that's what they use to make reed baskets and things. No, MJ, they mainly use Phragmites, which is a proper reed, and it's found in rivers. And the reason it's better for baskets and that sort of thing is that it's got a kind of spongy inside. And that spongy inside makes it last a lot longer, first of all. And second of all, you can twist it into different shapes that you can't do with a lot of the grass. The grass eventually snaps. If you try and weave out of a dry straw or something like that, it will snap. It's not very robust because it's pretty much hollow inside. Right. Here we have a marula tree, and I'm sure you were listening to all those cicadas make an enormous noise, and they've all stopped because they recognize that we are a predator, and they're amazingly clever at just ceasing their noise every time they feel like they're under threat. That's shouting. So ventriloquistic, and because of that, they're able to shout and not be eaten. I don't know if you were with us this morning. If you weren't, well, you were probably asleep, and that's fair enough. So sorry, we keep losing our signal. We don't really understand why, but we'll keep walking in this direction. Seems to be okay. Norm, you want to know, is it very dry, first of all, and B, is it normally this dry at this time of year? Norm, what I'm going to try and do is get you into where we can see the incredible cloud build up that's happening behind us. I don't think it's going to rain today. Kind of situation is totally normal. So if we turn around and we show you into the sky there, you can see an enormous amount of grey, stormy build-up. Now, Norm, that's totally normal for this time of year. I don't think it's going to rain on us. This is perfectly normal dry season weather. Everybody thinks as soon as the spring starts that, you know, come September or October, it's going to be a deluge, and if it doesn't deluge immediately, then we're obviously in some kind of that actually bring the proper sort of flushes of grass. Normally don't come before sort of. So this kind of dry situation is totally normal for this part of in November, and perhaps halfway through November, then we're going to be in trouble. While we're wandering along looking for the next interesting little piece of ecology, Yuri in the Netherlands, just watch this big stump here. Yuri in the Netherlands, you want to know how I became a ranger and what on earth, or how long I've been out here and what I want to do for the rest of my life. Well, Yuri, there's quite a lot of questions in that. I'll give you the very broad strokes. I became a ranger. I wasn't going to ever become a ranger. I was going to be a guitar player. That's what I wanted to do as a profession. And I had a girlfriend at one stage who was, shall we say, strong-willed in many respects, and she said that we were going to be rangers, and at the time I didn't know what a game ranger did. That was when I was about 23. I thought maybe he counted grasses or animals or something like that. And I thought what would happen was that at our interview I would be immediately spotted as a fraud, and they'd keep her and send me away, and I'd go and play the guitar and she'd be in the bush and we'd be separated and all my problems would be solved. Needless to say, that didn't happen, and a little while later I suddenly found myself in this whole new world of magnificent discovery, the world that I find, that I'm trying to share with you here, where there's an entire ecosystem in a funny piece of gnarled wood that's been dug up by an elephant, full of termites and different kinds of animals. There are the birds and the different calls that they make and the incredible scenery that we get all around us. So Yuri, I always wanted to live in a beautiful place. I've always been inspired by natural beauty, but in terms of this kind of job, I didn't really know I was going to do this till I was about 23 or so. But that's not too late. I know some people who started doing this job at over 40, which of course is very old indeed. It's not really. I'm only a year away from that. Now, training-wise, you don't really need to do a degree, but it does help. I find it just helps you to learn how to think. And what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Well, this is quite a lot of fun doing this right now for the rest of my life. So for now, I'm very happy doing this. We'll see how long it lasts. It's a rather job. Thank you, Yuri. In the Netherlands, you sound like an extremely interested fellow in this kind of life. And I hope that you're able to come out here one day. There's some dwarfs there. Can you see them just sticking their little heads out? I don't know if you're going to be able to pick them up on the camera, Brian.
Yeah,
You got them? Okay, so Brian will just steady himself and he'll punch the zoom as hard as he can, and we'll see if we can get those little dwarf mongoose sitting, doing exactly what dwarf mongoose do at this time of the day. I like to say they keep kind of, well, I don't suppose they are French hours at all, but they keep leisurely hours. They don't like to strain themselves. They come out only once the sun is well up. Then they warm themselves and do their sort of morning constitutionals on the outside of the termite mound that they live in. And they go off and forage for a while, probably sleep during the heat of the day. And then before the sun goes down, they come back and they have their evening constitutionals. And as soon as it's dark, safe in the middle of the mound. Let's see if we can get a bit closer to them. I'm not sure that we'll be able to, but let's try. They are very aware, and they will probably start alarm calling at me pretty soon. If not at me, certainly at Brian, because he is, well, I mean, he's pretty tall anyway, and with the aerial sticking up above him, he's positively giraffe-like. So we're going to one of the most important things, you see they have disappeared. One of the most important things with animals, we'll try and get a bit closer and then entice them out, is that because they see us as a threat, it's very important that you never approach them head on. Well, not if you want to view them. If you want them to run away, then you can approach them head on and clap your hands and make a big noise. But if you want to view animals, it's important that they don't see you as a threat. So for example, if there was a giraffe over there and we wanted to get a bit closer to it, what we would do is just kind of circle around. We wouldn't walk straight at it, because that's kind of a threatening behavior, and they would run away. So we're going to circle around slowly towards the termite mound, and then I'm going to try and well, I'm actually going to get Brian to make the example of the dwarf mongoose call. You know how to do that. You can see one just sticking his head out. Is that one of them there, watching us? There we go, look at that little fellow watching us. Can you see him?
steady and I can punch in.
Little dwarf mongoose. And if Brent is taking you where I hope and think he might be taking you, and I don't know this for sure at all, these things... Oh, he's not taking you anywhere at the moment. All right, I'm not going to say anything. I've been told I'm not allowed to say anything at the moment. Never mind. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to say anything. Okay. There's another one. Another dwarf mongoose there. So, the most famous cousin, of course, of the dwarf mongoose is the suricate or meerkat, and they have a pretty similar sort of social structure as far as I'm aware. Now, I'm going to defer to Brian here because he spent a huge amount of time with meerkats in the Kalahari. So Mike in Tampa, Florida, also sounds like a fun place to live. I think that they are pretty much the same. Is that right, Brian?
Very similar.
Very similar. They'll have an alpha pair, which will do most of the breeding. They might have a beta pair that could breed, but I suspect sometimes those pups would be killed, and they're very similar to some of the canids that we get out here. They do the same sort of thing. So we've got that one watching us there, and these will be two different troops of mongoose. They won't be the same. There'll be two, and they're not that territorial, but they can be a little bit territorial. So we've got the one still watching us from there, and the other one on the larger mound there. So that gives you an idea of kind of the closeness of the two troops. Unless that chap there may have been excluded from the mound because he was out foraging, and perhaps he's kind of got stuck there. We'll have temporary refuges in their sort of home range, and maybe he's into a temporary refuge because he saw us coming. Same goes for those guys. I'm not sure which is the main home. Just up there, we've got some magpie shrikes. And those magpie shrikes are not that noise that you can hear. I'm not sure if you can hear that. That's called a crested barbet. Beautiful coloured yellow, red, black and orange bird. There he is on the top. You got him, Brian?
No, I'm on
in the middle there. They're obviously sitting, listening to their Sunday song from the crested barbet. Not a particularly varied Sunday song, I have to say. In fact, not a very exciting song at all. There he is, the crested barbet. Beautiful bird, very scruffy. Right, let's continue down this path. And very interesting how many different animals out here have learned to kind of live in a community. And I find it fascinating. Lots of birds. So those magpie shrikes you were looking at there, they live in a sort of communal breeding colony. The dwarf mongoose, obviously a lot of the canids. The cats, however, are a notable exception. They don't like, the only social cats in the world are, of course, the lions. Cheetahs a little bit. And it's so often why domestic cats that live together fight with each other, because they're not actually evolved to be social. They evolved from the African wildcat, which is a cat that lives here, and grew up, they're actually very similar to a domestic cat, but they're completely solitary. Yuri, age 17 in the Netherlands, you say you are going to try and gather some money to come out here one day, perhaps on your way to see your girlfriend in Australia. Yuri, you're a young man to have a girlfriend so far away from you. Yes, that's another subject we can get into later, perhaps. Well, just the two of us. And that's serious commitment, Yuri. Good for you. Then you also want to know, have I ever been attacked by a wild animal out here? No, I haven't. I've been charged by one or two that have taken exception to me being around. So I've had a leopard charge at me. I've had one or two lions growl at me. I've had one or two buffalo take a step or two closer to me, and there's been the odd elephant to which I've got a little bit close, but I've never been actually attacked. You've got to really irritate an animal. Watch out there, Brian. You've got to really irritate an animal in order to make it attack you. You must remember, most things out here just want to be away from us. They don't want to walk towards us. They don't want to be around us. And so you just have to be careful. So while we're walking along, you'll see suddenly sometimes I'll turn my head away and I'll look away from you and just scan around. And as long as you're aware all the time. So if we saw an elephant up ahead there, it would be our duty to make sure that we saw him, hopefully before he saw us. If he had seen us and was looking at us, we'd assess his behavior, and if he looked like he was unhappy, we'd just kind of walk slowly away into the bush. What would be stupid would be to walk towards him, and if he then showed like he was upset, keep walking towards him. That's the kind of behavior that will eventually get you attacked. But otherwise, if you're careful enough, chances are that you won't be attacked. There's always the chance that you could be, because you could make a mistake, or an animal could be injured or hurt when you come across it, and that would make it upset and angry. But it's just the same as, say, living where you live in the Netherlands. You can always have an accident. You can fall off your bicycle, you can fall off a skateboard, you can be hit by a car sometimes. These things happen, and it's the same out here. Generally, though, it's not a particularly dangerous place to be as long as you're aware of what's going on. There is a giraffe. That's what Brent was looking at earlier. Well, not with you. He told me to come into this area and we didn't see the giraffe he was looking at. I can see a large giraffe in the clearings here. We're just going to walk to the edge of it. And while we're doing that, I just have to tell you, we're now in a grove of silver cluster leaf trees, and they're just coming into flower. Now, what I want to describe to you is the smell of these flowers. There is the giraffe. Now, the smell of these flowers can be best described as follows. Brent Leo Smith has a pair of boots that are very, very old. They're very old, and he has worn them extensively on many walks in the forest with no socks on them. Now, those boots, I have seen paint strip off walls next to those boots, and they're roughly the same smell as the flowers on the silver cluster leaf tree. They really are utterly disgusting smelling things. And so it's a nervous time of the year when you're walking through the bush, hoping you won't walk into a smelly silver cluster leaf tree. So beautiful giraffe there now, and you can just see exactly what I was talking about with the fact that they are so curious about us. Now, what we'll do, instead of walking straight towards him, we'll test my theory, and we'll walk off basically to the right-hand side of your screen and see if we can't get a little bit closer by moving to the right and then a little bit closer to him. Here we go. All around the birds are calling. Beautiful kind of warmth about the summer air. So one of the things we listen to when we're walking is for alarm calls, obviously, because alarm calls of different birds and squirrels will alert us to the different sounds or different possible threats there are in the area. There that giraffe goes. He's not very pleased with us. There, he stopped. So we'll just stop here. And now, Kathy, you want to know how on earth we tell the difference between the normal bird call and a sort of alarm call. Kathy, the way we do that is experience mainly, but as a basic rule of thumb, an alarm call will normally be totally different from the sort of standard issue call. and it will also be strident and angry. You can definitely hear the tone is quite angry. So the most obvious is the rattling testicular, and the rattling testicular, when it's not alarm calling, goes chee chee chit 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 chee chee chick chick chick. When it's alarming, it goes pee 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 pee, and it sounds alarmed. You wouldn't know that if someone hadn't told you. But there's definitely experience needed when you're assessing alarm calls. He's not that happy, that little fellow. So we'll just carry on along here. He's melting into some thicker bush, and there is an impala just across this clearing here. Now, we've just been looking at some giraffe. This morning we were hoping to find a leopard that was calling around us. I wouldn't mind seeing a leopard right now. In fact, Brian, it's not a leopard, but I just wonder if you can show us what you have to look out for while you're walking. Can you see what I'm looking at?
I think so.
Yes. So just look on your screen there, everybody, and you can see the bottom of 1 or 2 or 3 animals. And there are lots of impala in here, and also, obviously, the back end of a zebra. This is just behind that cluster leaf tree. So we'll walk a little closer, and while we're doing that, just looking around. Oh yes, sorry, Jim, I forgot your question. And Jim, you wanted to know basically what happens with would a leopard ever take a giraffe? Would say an injured or young giraffe? Jim, without being facetious, it does depend very much on the leopard. So a big male leopard, they've been recorded once or twice taking fully grown adult giraffe cows. How they manage that, I just don't know. But absolutely, a big male leopard would take a small giraffe if it was unprotected, though. But remember, the mothers are very protective, and if they were injured, they could fall prey to a leopard. But a healthy young giraffe, very unlikely that a leopard would ever be able to take it. Certainly not a female. Would have to be a big male, probably. But they're very well protected by their mothers. So, it does depend very much on the leopard. There's that giraffe looking at us. It's got a slightly confusing message on the radio, and I just need to quickly clear it up. Tara, you are on the correct channel. All right, so we're going to head across to Brent, whose kill surprise doesn't appear to be quite the surprise he hoped, which is a bit sad for him. Sorry about that. Let's head across to him, and he'll tell you what he was going to look for, and we will continue on our merry stroll.
So there was a report of a lioness with an incredibly full belly in this area that went into this drainage line. We're trying to find her now. There's a possibility she might move towards the Juma Dam camp. So Zoomies, beware. And while I try to take a little walk into this thicket where we can't get a car, and in the middle of that thicket, we again came across something that Brian and I found on the bushwalk a few days ago. A fascinating little creature. Little grey or the larvae of a little grey almost invisible moth, tiny little grey moths. Parasitize the seeds of a timbushi tree. And I think in the US, you have a similar thing, or same principle, but probably a different species of moth and a different species of tree, or Mexican jumping beans. And I've got some here. I'm just going to stop where I can listen if these lines have a kill. They said she had a very, very big belly. She was last seen going into the thicket here. And Andrew and I have checked the whole edge of the thicket, so maybe she's further. Andrew, can you check? Tires that side, sorry. Look good? Look good? I mean, it doesn't feel so good. Sorry, something just doesn't feel right with the car. And the steering. But let's just get a little bit further. So maybe she's making her way towards the water. Amazing how quickly these animals can disappear. So, are they going to move? Normally take a few seconds after they've been in your hand to relax, but they're the little seeds of the tambweji. I'll show you, once they've jumped, I'll show you what they look like when they're together. Bit shy, these jumping beans. Maybe I should sprinkle some magic dust on them.
Aha.
We got a bit of movement there.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So basically what's happening is a little larvae inside there is jackknifing, so curling up and flicking its body to try and move it. Oh. And sometimes it's incredible how high or how far they can jump. There you go. Getting a little bit more movement here.
Whoa.
Is that a good one?
That was a big one.
They can actually jump quite far and quite high. Oh, there we go. It is incredible to watch. So a type of snout moth, a grey snout moth, or an emporia moth.
Whoa.
This is the first time you've ever seen this, Andrew?
Yeah. This is the best thing ever.
Oh, I caught it. So unfortunately you can't hear the movement there, but I can see them jumping. Oh, I think this one's going to go next. Oh, he's almost jumped out of frame. He has jumped out of frame. He's out of frame.
He's alone now.
Okay, well, let's carry on slowly looking for this lioness. I'm going to go check and I'll put these back in a drainage line where they belong. So if she doesn't go to the Jumorzal, she might go to the Gallagher. And so we're going to rush off and check there. So we still, I asked you guys where the name giraffe came from. And well done to Gilly, who got that correct. It's from the Arabic word, zarafa. It means the one who walks swiftly. So speaking of walking and zaraffas, let's go see what the bushwalk team's up to.
Hello everyone. It is after all a Sunday afternoon, and I find one of the best ways to while away a Sunday afternoon is to lie upon the grass and look up into the sky. And what you will see if you live in a place like this, probably not if you live in New York City, but in a place like this you see the vultures flying overhead, and they are so high up that we're not even going to try, and well, Brian is actually going to try, but they are so high up that they're just these little pinpricks of darkness flying underneath the white cloud. And the first thing to note about that is that you and I don't have the physiologies to cope with that. It'd be too cold for us. They're high enough for, I mean, they're much higher than an aeroplane that would go, that doesn't have, a compressed cockpit. So it's astonishing that they're able to be up there and stay warm enough to function. But it is the most peaceful thing in the world to lie like this, a little piece of grass in one's mouth, watching the birds fly overhead. So if you happen to be in a place where you can get into this sort of position, I would heartily recommend it on the Sunday afternoon especially. Just be careful a little bit of the ticks. It is wonderful to... No, it's not. It is. Look, there's a little tick. No, it's not a tick, it's a little fly. Good idea to just check yourself for ticks, of course, after you've been lying in the grass. Otherwise you're liable to find them in your underpants after a couple of weeks, and that is an extremely unpleasant experience, I assure you. This particular grass that I was chewing is one called Eragrostis, so also one of the love grasses, Eragrostis gummiflua. And Eragrostis gummiflua is called gummiflua because it's got, I like to say gummiflua, because it's got a bit of a sticky node. And what that does apparently is to stop the ants climbing up the stalk and stealing the seeds before they're ready to actually disperse. So it's got kind of a sticky, if you don't know what a node is, Brian, if you can just come down a little bit. The node is where the join is. So if I put my hands on there, there's a particularly old example of it. These nodes are sticky, just a little bit sticky this time. But when they're new, they're very sticky indeed. And that's to stop the ants climbing up. They'll get a bit stuck, turn around and go back down. Otherwise they'd climb up and steal the seeds and take them into their nests. And that would be the end of Eragrostis gummiflua. Right, let us continue. Marvellous to lie here in the glory of this brilliant afternoon. Before I carry on talking nonsense about the bush, just remember there is a fireside chat today, of course, not very long at all, and we're going to be chatting about wild dogs. We've had some wonderful wild dog sightings of late. So if you want to ask us a question, #SafariLive, you can send it through now or while we're doing the talk or the actual chat around the dogs. We'll show you a couple of clips, and in fact one of the clips from my birthday, wonderful birthday I had, great gift from the wilderness on the morning drive of my birthday. So that's what we're going to do at the fireside chat. Brian and I are sort of going to head off and set it up in about 10 minutes or so. But until then, stick with us. We'll see what we can see. We've been walking through this clearing for a little while, and just enjoying the atmosphere. You can also see, of course, this is not really part of the bush, but there's the moon. Beautiful moon, almost full, or not quite, but it's getting there. It'll provide quite a lot of light tonight if this cloud dissipates. And I'm going to just ask Brian, once he's shown you the moon, to show you how the cloud has started to kind of dissipate behind us. And that's not unusual for this time of year. If you look across there, that was an enormous bank of very grey cloud earlier. and you can see it starting to dissipate away, and that's what this cloud does. It's promises and promises and promises, and for many weeks you think you're in a terrible drought. We may have a drought this year, but we're not in one yet, and eventually one of these clouds is going to come all the way over this glorious place we call Djuma, and it's going to dump its load here, and it's going to be wonderful. Now, I did, Dolly, say that I had been charged by a leopard. Now, you're in Ontario, where I don't think leopards are very thick on the ground, certainly not in any text that I've read, and you want to know, what did I do when it charged? Why did it stop, i.e. why am I not filled with puncture marks as we speak, and what did we do? Dolly, to be honest with you, it happened so fast that I barely realized it had happened. So I was walking along. I was a trainee ranger at the time, and I was walking along with the tracker, roughly the same height as Brian, but about twice the width, large fellow called Elvis Gubai, and he was walking in front on the tracks, and I was carrying the rifle behind because he refused to carry a rifle unless somebody else carried it for him, didn't think it was necessary. And there was another chap roughly of my proportions walking along sort of off to the left-hand side. And we were walking along in a drainage line, watching, trying to find the tracks. And the other chap was walking on top of the drainage line on the bank. And suddenly he said, "Pass up." Now, pass up means watch out. In fact, he didn't say it with anything like that kind of urgency at all. He just went, "Pass up." And this leopard exploded out from under his feet and came charging down into the drainage line. Then it saw us, and it turned towards us, and it took 2 steps forward, went like that, and stopped. And I, of course, was the new trainee ranger. My training kicked in. I put the rifle onto my shoulder, I chambered around, and I aimed. And by the time I had the rifle on my shoulder and aimed, the leopard had disappeared completely. I think she just turned around and just, she realized she wasn't cornered, turned around and headed off. We gave her a fright, we gave her a surprise. She wasn't cornered, and she didn't have cubs with her, and so she didn't try and attack us. And the funniest thing about it was, of course, I was a brand new kind of trainee ranger. My heart's going I unloaded the rifle, took the round out, pushed it back into the magazine, closed, made it safe, put it down on my shoulder and looked around to find Elvis, to see, obviously he must have been very panicked as well. And he was standing like this, looking into a tree at a little sparrowhawk or something, trying to identify what bird it was. And I said, "Elvis, that was unbelievable, wasn't it?" And he went, "Oh yeah, I found, let's go." So Dolly, that's what happened. And it's happened twice with leopards. And unless, I have a friend who's a very good naturalist. He's a brilliant tracker, actually. And he had an experience with a leopard on foot that was a lot more terrifying. And that was because she had cubs. So he and his tracker were tracking her. They knew something was up. When he tells a story, it's wonderful. He tells a great story, and you can just hear the birds went silent, and they're walking through the drainage line like this, and she exploded out of a bush at him, and he went back, he picked the rifle up, and he tripped over a branch onto the ground, and there he lay, and he had this leopard in his face, and his tracker was standing kind of between him and the leopard, going, "Yema, yema, don't move, don't move. Look down, don't look up at her like this." I don't believe that made a big difference. And he said, "Don't look up and just stay still." And slowly she calmed down, and he would take one little step back, and then she'd come again, and eventually she calmed down enough for him to back off on his backside like this. They went back to fetch the rifle later. He dropped it in the sand. It was totally useless. A leopard is so fast that even if you are the fastest gun in the West, for you to pick up, because when we track, we don't track, if you are carrying a rifle, you don't carry the rifle with a round in the chamber, so it's not ready to fire. You've still got to pull the bolt back, slide it up, close it, and then aim. And that's just because we're not out here to be aggressive. It's only for a serious emergency that you'd ever use the rifle. And as many people don't even use rifles out in the bush. But if you're tracking something sometimes it's a good idea. And a leopard is so quick, so many of the animals are so quick out here, that to be able to bring it up, chamber it, and then aim properly before the animal is either on top of you or has disappeared. Normally it's disappeared. No, that's impossible. So, those are my 2 leopard stories. Now there's some impala flipping through here. Look at that. Now why are we talking about leopard? Those are of course impala, and leopards like to eat impala quite a lot. And Michael in Florida, I want to know if we get rare species or different kinds of species of leopards. There's only 1 species of leopard in the world, of our leopard. So it's Pantheropardus. You get it from here all the way into the far east of Russia. It's the same species. You do get things like snow leopards. It's a different species. Obviously jaguars, which is a different species. But in Africa, there's only 1 leopard species, and that is Pantheropardus. And it's the same one that occurs all the way into the eastern parts of Russia. So Mike, no rare leopard species. There you do get the odd rare leopard coloration. So sometimes we get black leopards. That's quite unusual. Of course, they occur up around, there's 1 or 2 up around Leidenburg, but I've never seen one. Very, very rare. But that's the same species. It's just like a different color of the same leopard. This is all good. It was your footprint. I was looking for some tracks, and I saw these odd ones, and it was actually Brian's enormous size 12. Everybody, you don't often see Brian. There is Brian's footprint. You got it there? Yeah. There is my footprint next to Brian's footprint. That gives you an idea of how much larger than me Brian is. Now, Christine and Jennifer in Toronto, 2 interesting cat questions. We're heading back sort of towards our vehicle so that we can get ready for the fireside chat. So we're going to walk in that direction. You want to know about, I mentioned African wildcats earlier, and you want to know, are they feral cats that have gone wild? No, it's quite the other way around. Your domestic cat comes from originally the African wildcat, and they were originally domesticated by the Egyptians. They domesticated African wildcats many, many moons ago, and all cats came from them. Now, another, part of that query that you've just asked me, and I'm not sure that I have an answer to it. You say when domestic cats go feral, they tend to form groups. Do they? Do they form groups that hunt cooperatively, or do they live in places where there is a lot of food, and where they actually maintain sort of individual spaces? I don't think that you will find that they'll form a cohesive prey unit where, like with lions, what they'd do is that if they were hunting through an area like this, they would immediately peel off from each other, and one would walk through there, and one would walk through there, and one would go be a backup over there. One would go around the side. I think you'd find that feral cats wouldn't do that at all, and they certainly have enormous fights. And also, of course, a feral cat is not in a natural situation, and so, yeah, I guess there could be there are probably no absolute social structures for them. But certainly African wildcats, unless they're with kittens, or unless they're about to breed, they will be totally alone. Oh, what a wonderful afternoon this is. Have a look at the sunset there, just going down behind some cumulonimbus thunderheads, and I'm sure in the mountains, if you were sitting in the mountains now, there would be a great storm brewing, some thunder, some lightning, and perhaps a wind carrying some rain. Sounds marvellous. Wonderful clouds. Such a magnificent time of year in South Africa, it really is, especially if you're on the high veld, which is on the mountains and beyond, or in the low veld here. Down in the Cape, not so much. Not a bad time of year, but it's really nice up here now. So if you ever come to Africa and you want to see animals and spend time in the bush, this is the right time to be here. The other thing that's going to start happening fairly soon is bushes like this, which is called a white berry bush, are going to start to get their little fruits. And I just find it so wonderful to walk through the bush. I think I've said this before, probably a few times. I love to be able to walk through the bush and find little things to eat. It's just such a rare pleasure that we don't get very often anymore. And you walk through and you find a little bit in the way of a marula fruit, or you find a guarri berry to eat, or one of these white berry bushes, and it's just really delightful to be able to do that. Right, on we go, Pan. Just to some jongos in this tree. They've seen us and they're alarm calling at us. You can also hear some primates possibly calling off to the side. It's just me that I can hear. Okay. Well, they are primates, they're human beings. I can hear a game drive quite close by. Just to give you an update on Brent Leo Smith, who has had possibly the worst luck with vehicles of anyone I've ever met. And this is no aspersion on the way he drives, although he does drive, well, he drives in a sort of, shall we say, free fashion. And this is not what's happened today. Wendy's steering rod has given out. He is now going to try and drive Rusty out. Good luck to him, is all I have to say as far as that goes. But he will be with us as soon as he can. So for the moment, we will continue on our little walk. Very pleasant Sunday afternoon stroll that we're having through the bushveld here. Now let's go and get a bit of a vantage point from the top of that termite mound there. I've been on that termite mound before with Andrew and we looked at some buffalo. Now, James Bear, we've talked a little bit about being attacked by animals today, and attack is not a word that I would use lightly. And you want to know how much do you have to irritate a rhino to make it charge at you? Depends on the rhino, James, if it's a black rhino or a white rhino. Now, a white rhino, which is much larger, tends to be far less. There's a little lizard in here, but I think to find him with the camera is going to be extremely hard. He was almost the same color as this tree. James, I will get back to your question now, I promise. There was a little grey lizard that went disappearing off into this thicket. James, a white rhino is quite difficult to irritate. They're very fearful, and normally if they smell you or hear you, they'll just run away. But sometimes they get a fright and they just start running. And if you happen to be in the way, it looks like they're charging, and often they're not charging at all. They can't see anything. They're almost blind, so they just start running. And if you just step behind a tree like this, they'll normally just go straight past. But if a white rhino does decide that you have irritated it to the point that it's now coming to get you, there's very little you can do. You either climb a tree, accept your fate, or you have to shoot it. It's a very rare thing. As long as you're careful, again, highly unlikely to happen. But a white rhino, you can't turn. A black rhino, on the other hand, is far more likely to give you a rev, as we say. They're far more likely to charge. But if you shout and scream or throw a piece of clothing or something like that, they can normally be stopped and turned, and then you can walk off. You don't want to use that as a kind of guarantee, though. You always want to be just as respectful with both. But black rhino are known to have very bad tempers. White rhino are known to be far more even-tempered. But if you do manage to irritate a white rhino to the extent that it does decide you are a pain in its bottom, watch out, it won't stop. So let's just go up this termite mound for two reasons. One, I went up the other day and we did have a view of a hornbill nest in the tree here. We're not far from our vehicle, so we'll just quickly do this and hope that there he is. There is Brent Leo Smith limping home with Wendy. He sounded like at least 43 humans. I thought it was at least an enormous crowd, but it is just Brent. Okay, so there's the sun over there in the west, beautifully silhouette, well not silhouetted, shining through a marula tree. And then the marula tree to our right hand side, once Brian has shown you the sun, that marula tree here has got a hornbill nest in it, and I keep coming back to it to see if I can see the hornbills, and I've only ever seen them here once. I suspect, no, twice. I suspect it's a bit late, so that the male and female, which I think have finished raising their clutch, I think they will be around here somewhere, and perhaps the clutch is inside the nest there. And it's that little spot where the branch used to be. What's that called now? I've forgotten what that's called. What do you call it? There's a word, isn't there? Where a branch has come off a tree. There's definitely a word for it. So if you remember what that is, everybody, please can you try and send that through? My brain has failed me. But in that little spot there is a hole, a little slit. It's a little bit wider than it looks from the angle that we're looking at it. And there is a hornbill's nest in there, a little red-billed hornbill's nest. We'll just look around here. And we're pretty close to where we live. And you can see the final control over there with its aerial. And that's quarantine clearings just in front of it. Alrighty then. Alright, we're going to head back to the vehicle. Now we do need to go and prepare ourselves for the Chat de la Fireside. Brian, good luck coming down this.
Thanks,
coming down this termite mountain. I'll stand here and catch you. Yes, come on then. How much do you weigh?
About 86.
86 kilograms. Yeah, look, it's going to be difficult. I won't lie to you. There we go. Look at that. The man is an athlete. And for those of you who didn't know, Brian was in fact in the circus once. He was a trapeze artist. Amazing. Was that a fun time of your life, Brian?
It was splendid.
Splendid. Good.
Learning experience.
Yes, I'm sure. Certainly not one that many of us have had.
No.
So our little Mahindra, which is the vehicle we drive, is just over there, and we'll head towards that, and then we're going to go back towards the fireside. Look, 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 look.
Try it.
There he goes. Sorry, everybody. That was a spider hunting wasp that Brian may or may not have got as it swooped past us. I'm sorry if that made you nauseous, but it's just quite fun to see. Here he comes. He's coming back.
Yeah.
You got him?
I've lost him now.
No, you can hear him though. We can hear him. He's going bzzz. Sounds like a sort of airborne tractor. He's on the termite mound where we were. All right, we'll leave him there. That is a spider hunting wasp looking for spiders, like baboon spiders. And what they will do is find the baboon spider, which is like a small tarantula that we get out here. They sting him, pink, and then once he's stung, that sting paralyzes him completely. And then what they'll do is they'll lay their eggs inside the spider. So the spider is alive, but paralyzed. They will then take the spider and bury it in a hole. The larvae of the wasp will then hatch inside the spider and eat it alive from the inside before pupating and hatching out as other quite nasty spider hunting wasps. Really very unpleasant way to go, I imagine, being stung by a wasp, thinking that things were okay, and then suddenly going paralyzed, and then realizing that you were being eaten slowly from the inside. Not very nice for a baboon spider. Question from Indiana about tarantulas. Now, Sandy, you you say you really enjoy tarantulas, and that you've heard baboon spiders are more aggressive than the ones you get here. That's not true, Sandy. I would happily let a baboon spider walk over my hand. They're very docile things. They can give you a nip, but it's not anything as venomous as a tarantula's bite. I think a tarantula has got a slightly venomous bite. It feels like a bee sting, but they're really unlikely to bite you. I've seen lots of people, I've held one myself, and they sit across the hand and they're absolutely fine. Not vicious at all. What you don't want to do is pull them out of their holes, because if you do pull them out of their holes, they can't re-dig those holes. So if you pull them out, you've got to be very gentle about it so that they come out and they don't damage the side of the hole when they come out, because they've got only sort of limited, as adults, they've only got 2 sets of kind of digging parts, and they dig one burrow, and by the time they finish the burrow, the digging parts on their legs have worn off, so they never dig another one. So you've got to be quite careful about it. Right, here we are, back at the car. We'll attempt to attach it ourselves to the car without losing signal. If we do, we will go to a brief technical loop, I'm afraid, while Brent gets back out there and we hie our way towards the fireside chat. Brian, I have parked you in a horrendous position here. I'm sorry for that. Right, well, I guess you can see how we do it here. Do you want to just back up here and I'll take it off your back? Okay, we're going to go to a tech loop while we do this. We don't think it's going to be possible to do without making ourselves look like complete morons. So we'll go to the tech loop and we'll see you just now.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
So our bad luck of vehicles and technical difficulty continues. There's James coming towards. Wendy has been retired. Wendy has been retired Unfortunately, she has got a mechanical problem with her steering. So after drive today, I'll climb underneath, take out those arms, and we're going to send them off to town early in the morning. Hopefully they can fix them before tomorrow's sunset safari. So we've swapped onto Rusty, who we're not sure whether is going to start or not in a few minutes. And it's one of those things. And it's very easy to get frustrated and angry about it, but it is life in the bush. And it comes with all these incredible perks, as well as some frustrating mechanical problems and signal problems from time to time. So we're going back to try find that lioness now in a new car. Maybe Rusty will bring us some luck. We've been seeing quite a lot of lions around, and Donna's wondering, are we seeing less leopards because there's so many lions around? I don't think so. And Donna, I think the reason we're seeing less leopards is that quarantine in Kunyuma, those young males have gone. And they operated in quite a small area before they became completely independent of their mother's territory. So we used to see them a lot, and in that they used to often also find the other leopards that pass through, like Mvula and Karula. So I think that's the main reason we're not seeing as many leopards. I mean, we still find tracks from time to time, but we're almost always certain when those two are around that at least one of them would be on the property. So I think that's the main reason at the moment. And also you must remember that there's been that male leopard shift in territories, with Mvula now spending a lot more time away from Djuma and Tingana taking over this, but he's still got quite a lot of territory elsewhere he's got to patrol. So that's also probably a shift where we used to be completely in one male's territory here, and we're now in two, so there's less of their territory for them to patrol on Djuma, so that we do see them a little bit less. I was hoping that lioness, they said, had a very full belly, might pop out either at this waterhole or at on the Djuma Dam cam, but no such luck. So I'm going to head back to where she was last spotted and have a quick squiz around there. So no sign of the lioness here, no tracks. So in our rush to try and get Rusty, we accidentally took some batteries that are needed for the fireside chat. So unfortunately the fireside chat is in the opposite direction of the lion, where the lion was. So we're going to have to go back, or either maybe, we're going to have to go drop off those batteries before we head back to towards where that lioness was. And while we're heading that way, we've got a question from Kelly. White Bear, interesting name. And Kelly says James has been chatting quite a lot about walking safaris, and she's wondering, what should you look for in a guide? What questions should you ask? Or should you just blanket trust anyone? Kelly, that is a very, very interesting question. It's a very difficult thing to gauge. One would hope that if they are taking walking safaris, they have had lots of experience. It's always a good one, and have the necessary qualifications. Which, strangely enough, in this day and age, neither James nor I or Scott have, because we're not guiding guests professionally anymore. But so it all depends. I'd say possibly some of the best walking guides I know have been walking for many years and walking in some very, very special areas up in Tanzania, in Zambia. But some of the questions I would ask if I was a guest on a walking safari is, it's very difficult. I don't know, obviously I'm looking at it from a very different point of view. I've been walking wild animals since before I was 10 years old, but I'd say you possibly just always look to see if the person seems quite calm. And it's a really difficult question to answer, because if you think about it, I've never really been in that position. But I would say generally, if you get a good feeling from someone that they're sort of calm and collected, don't look like they're going to panic in a situation, normally that's how I would judge it. So how to judge your walking guide before you go walking with him? Just make sure the light pops up. Yeah, no, just an Impala. Is in what he says to you, not what you ask him. So basically the same as so before you take someone on a walking safari, you'll run through quite a bit of information with them, because it is quite different from being on a game drive vehicle, and there's quite a few more things that can go wrong. So I'll try to give you sort of a pre-game walk or walking safari sort of thing. So I did mine a little bit differently, but it's they're all generally quite similar. And one must remember also, it's up to the guide to decide whether or not to take the guest on a walking safari. Now this is quite different, and I, in my years running walking safaris in Tanzania, have actually refused someone paying money to go walk into elephants and things like that, because I thought they would run. So basically you would say, okay guys, it's very simple, we're going to walk in single file and we're going to try to keep quiet so we can listen to the bush and whatnot. If you want to get my attention, you can either click your fingers or sort of go. If you can't, to get my attention before speaking, most important thing is normally on the walking safaris you'll be carrying a firearm, so always stay behind the firearm. Do not wander off, do not get too far behind, and the most important rule is whatever you do, don't run. So even if you're being charged by an elephant, a lion or whatnot, you have to listen to the guide's voice, and he will generally have some hand signals, sort of stop, go down, or to the side, stop, normally a closed fist is stop, go down, but normally you also look for escape routes. Okay, so if something bad happens, guys, I want you to stay directly behind me and listen to my voice. So quite often when you are dealing with a potentially dangerous situation, you use your voice to control not only the animal, but the people. So if I'm being charged by a lion, for example, I'll start shouting, but I'm also shouting commands at the people. I'll say, get behind me, and also I'm using my voice in a very aggressive manner to try to put the lion off, but at the same time passing on information to the guests. with the walking. We've got, Lynn is asking whether there's certain requirements needed for a person to be able to go on walking safaris. There we are. Let's give them their batteries so we can go look for some lions. Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
No. Bye-bye.
Good luck to us all.
Good luck to us all, says Brian Joubert. And now we'll be going back to from whence we have just come. And so, sorry, are there any physical requirements a guest needs to be able to go on a walking safari? Yes and no. You need to be able to walk. You need to be marginally fit. I mean, they're not generally, most lodges in this part of the world, a walking safari is a very sedate stroll. Not quite like what we used to do in southern Tanzania and Zambia. On those walking safaris. So a walking safari and a bush walk are two very different things. So a bush walk is what happens at most of the lodges around here, normally after game drive, 11 o'clock in the morning. When we were guiding, we used to call it the 11 o'clock monster, because walking around in 45-degree heat at 11 o'clock is quite unpleasant. But some people want to go on a walk on their holiday, so we would take them on those walks. And a walking safari now is a very, very different thing. A walking safari like we ran in Tanzania, we did a couple of different types of walking safaris. One was a ported walking safari. So basically, can you imagine sort of 1800s out of Africa? We had about 25 guys, and they used to carry everything. We had dry ice in cooler boxes on racks, and we used to walk. And there we used to walk over a 4-day safari. We would probably cover close on 100 kilometers, depending. Normally around 20 to 25 kilometers a day, but in the lap of luxury, of course. So champagne and gin at the end of days and at lunch. And we did those type of walks, and those were very specialized and not too often. For the true connoisseurs, imagine. So we would walk meandering around rivers and stuff, and our porters would walk straight lines between the different camps, then set up camp, and then separate would set up like a little lunch stop with hammocks and cold drinks and things. And then the more common walking safari was very, very similar to that, except our camp was moved by vehicle. So we would head off at sort of first light, walking off into the bush, and then the staff would pack up everything and then drive around to the next campsite and set it up with a car. And those are walking safaris, so you don't actually go on a game drive. Both you walk in the early morning till it gets hot, then you slumber down your hammock till late afternoon, and then you walk in the late afternoon. And quite often, then we also did another different type of walking safari, which is what we call the sort of the big game hunting safari, say hunting in inverted commas. So we basically took people on a very, very similar equivalent to what a hunting safari would have been, except we would shoot them with cameras, not with firearms. And that was when we didn't just walk, and if we came across tracks we'd follow. We'd actually go look for tracks of lion, leopard, buffalo, elephant, and then track them and find them on foot, which was lots of fun. Just drove past the Chuma Dam camp, and there's some buffalo lying in there. And Oki from Oklahoma says, are they still pumping water into that little pan? It looks a little low this morning. Well, it's probably low because Eddie's been splashing in it and the buffalo have been splashing in it, but they are pumping it still, yes. And it is one of the only patches of water around at the moment. Otherwise, on Djuma, we only have 3 areas that currently have water. The one pan in front of the Djuma Dam Cam, another one in front of Gallagher, and then Buffalo's Hook are the only 3 water places that are holding water at the moment. So we're now in the right area to start looking for lions again. Fantastic array of fauna and flora here in the Sabi Sands, and we don't have a specific tree that Angel Lady is asking about. Angel Lady is wondering, do we have any baobabs here? Unfortunately not, but not too far from here, probably almost directly opposite of us, if my memory serves me correct, in the Kruger National Park is the most southern naturally occurring baobab in South Africa. Sorry guys. I didn't quite catch that on the radio. Someone just in my ear said, I think it was a leopard calling at Gallagher Waterhole. According to James. Okay, so we were right there. So now, lion, leopard. We've seen a lot of lions recently. I feel like I've been missing out on the leopard. Every time I've been on my way, I was on my way to see Shadow and Tingana mating, and my car broke down. So I feel like I haven't seen a leopard in such a long time that I think we're going to throw our towel in with the leopard. I suppose that's a terrible phrase, throw my towel in with the leopard. We're not throwing our towel in, we're certainly not giving up. I think we're going to hedge our bets on the leopard. So this is my first time ever driving Rusty, and it's a bit different from the other vehicles. Very new springs and shock absorbers, which tends to rattle our bones a little bit. Mine, but really, with the cameraman must really have to hang on there. Those will get a bit softer as we use the vehicle, and not even a dent yet. Tusk. Definitely gonna have to rectify that. No character. So this is the Gallagher Waterhole here, which we were just talking about as one of the only 3 places that has water at the moment. And we drove past it as we came out from Rusty. So maybe stealing those batteries by accident was a blessing in disguise, and it's going to put us in the right spot to find a leopard. What we're going to do now is we're actually just going to sit at the waterhole. Hopefully that leopard calls again. I wonder who it could be. while we sit here and listen, Jennifer in Toronto is asking about, she said she's heard that when you walk leopard on foot, you shouldn't make eye contact. Is it hard to train yourself not to do that? Well, Jennifer, what we do... Oh, hang on. I heard a squirrel alarming up there. Yeah, I'm just going to move away from the vehicle slightly so I can hear. Did you guys hear those francolins disappear? Let's go have a quick look there. So, Jennifer, I haven't forgotten about your question, don't worry. I just want to try and check, see if those francolins were exploding out of the bush because they were disturbed by a leopard. But no, the main reason you don't look at a leopard on foot, or you don't stare directly at a leopard on foot, is not so much eye contact, it's just even just looking in its general direction. As a leopard's main form of defense is its camouflage. So it realizes it's being spotted, and quite often you can see leopards from sort of under 5 meters when you're tracking them on foot, when you finally sort of catch sight of them. And so it either makes them run away or they might give you a warning charge. Those francolin exploded out of here. Let's just have a look down in the drainage here. But you are correct, Jennifer. Quite often when we're training new guides and stuff like that, they tend to go, leopard! And all that does is make the leopard run away, and you've got to start tracking again. You holding on, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Just come sit on this corner. We have a tire in the air. These very springy springs. There we go. Tire back on the ground. This is where those francolin burst out of right here. So let's see if I can see any tracks. Nope. Nothing here just yet. Come on, Rusty. Wendy or Jigger would have gone straight up there. Okay, so it doesn't look like those francolin were disappearing from a leopard. But remember, this whole area around Juma and Vuyatela is quite close to the dam camp. So guys, keep a listen out for any alarm calls towards the dam, or hopefully you'll spot it for me. Do my job for me. But while James is
Sawing.
how far?
Not far.
Okay, Andrew thinks he heard sawing. I didn't hear anything, I'm afraid. I think we need to sort out some sound issues on young Rusty. Okay, Andrew thinks it's up here. This can be a difficult block, lots of drainage lines, but there's this nice big elephant path we can follow. There's audio of Ingwe, just to the west of Gallagher Camp. I'm following up. So where do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, around this area.
Around here.
It's difficult to hear over the car engine.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit further through here. Where we can see down into the drainage line and around us. So we're not only listening for the leopard at the moment, we're listening for Franklin or any other little animal that might give away its presence. And there's the moon, and very nice and clear this evening. You can actually hear jumping beans popping in the timbuetis ahead of us. So on the topic of jumping beans that I can hear popping around me, Barbara from Melton is wondering, how do the little worms ever get out of the beans? Well, they'll eventually get out and then they'll pupate, so they'll go into that pupa phase and they'll bury themselves into the ground and then emerge as little moths. Wondering, would a leopard go after that lone buffalo calf that's at the Juma, at the Juma waterhole? So I'm just getting a bit of height so I can see a bit further around us. Come on, call again. There's a nice drongo there, Andrew, silhouetted. unfortunately, this leopard might be in this thicket that we can't even drive into. But we're going to hang around here for a few more minutes. Hopefully it calls again. All these jumping beans everywhere. Ollie from the United Kingdom is wondering, surely that movement attracts predators, so don't quite a few of them get eaten? Well, I'm sure a few do, but literally when they do hatch, there are thousands of them. They invade whole sort of groves of trees, and I think just sheer force of numbers. Anything. I still think it's probably worthwhile waiting around the waterhole, just in case that leopard takes one of these big animal pods and goes to have a drink, which is quite likely to do at this time of the day. So let's move along. Looks like Rusty's playing the same trick it likes to play on James. Well, this is one of the things about living in the bush. We can't just pop across to the mechanic or call someone in. We're a bit far out of town. Okay. Magic touch. Oh, so close. Let's give it a few seconds. Maybe Rusty is telling us we need to be more patient and listen for the leopard. And we will show you the moon. There we go, here's the moon. So, while we are temporarily unable to move from this position, Kelly, who's in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and would like to know, are animals that live in herds more predictive than animals that don't over their young? So take an impala versus giraffe. Impala and giraffe are not very good examples. They actually are both herd animals. They also have very different strategies of protection of their young. A giraffe would very much defend its young, it's big and it's capable, whereas an impala would just try to get out of the way. They are very successful impala because they breed so well. See that? What was that? Andrew down here. Oh, no, don't worry. Okay, come on, Rusty. So close. Seems like you got to get it on that first little thing. I think so. Relax for a little bit. And hopefully Rusty's right and the leopard walks straight into us. That's why it's not letting us move. But lots of different animals have very different sort of strategies for looking after their young. But generally your bigger animals will be more protective because they can afford to be more protective. Buffalo, hippo, elephant, giraffe, they also carry the young for a much longer time, so there's a lot more invested in it. So, and the thing is, an impala can't really do anything to a lion and leopard if it grabs its young, whereas a giraffe, right here, Rusty, you were right. Coming towards us, hopefully. That's literally right here, just on the other side of the drainage line.
Some lights on maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him yet. He's just not quite there. Oh, I don't even know where the buttons for the lights are. Oh, there we go. Oh, buttons. Buttons, yay. I like buttons. Yes, Rusty. Okay, let's see if we can get him in now. Okay, I wonder who it could be. And let's not stall either. This is a very difficult block to operate in. I'm not even sure we're going to be able to get the car through the drainage line here, but we will try. They let me right here. So close. Tantalizingly close. Get through there if we can't find anything to the side. Okay, that side, Andrew. I want to miss the stump?
Yeah.
There you go. I think this is... Oh, Andrew, watch out for the thorns there. I'm afraid I can't avoid them. You okay? As it's really nasty hook thorns on that. Oh, he's moving further away from us. I just heard him call again. Can we move, Andrew? Oh, I turned off by accident. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Force of habit. And... Oh no. And at that time I didn't actually turn off. It sounds like right here and we're stuck again. I don't think it's the problem that we initially thought it is. This is the first time I've driven her. Okay, we're just going to have to sit here at this precarious angle for a little bit. So the engine is turning over. Sounds like it's just not getting enough fuel in that initial bit there. I think we're going to have to get hold of Jamie, see if she can fix it by telling us what to do. Oh. It has been an interesting Sunday, I will definitely say that. So I think we're going to have to be just, it seems to be if you let the engine stay cool for a bit, it clicks over. But while we try to get ourselves out of this position and maybe find this leopard, Fireside Chat is waiting with James, and I'll see you guys there a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome to a very exciting fireside chat. Wonderful to have you with us. We're sitting here at the fireside chat place. Of course, I've got Brent over there. Well, I don't have him, you have him, or everyone has him. He's over there. There's a leopard calling there, and I've just heard a whole lot of guinea fowl alarm calling just behind us where I'm pointing now. Whatever leopard is that Brent has been following, I think is moving up, possibly up this road, and is now frightening the life out of the guinea fowl over there. So, Brent may or may not join us, depending on the recalcitrance of old Rusty. I think Rusty is probably going to be put to the torch fairly soon. We've got an exciting sort of half an hour plan for you. I think it's roughly half an hour. We're going to start off with my personal birthday present. Then we're going to move on to some interesting wild dog stuff. Now, if you want to talk to us, please remember you are welcome to talk to us via the tweet, and if you want to ask a question. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a piece of I think it's called Ericloa. I'm not really sure. I've ceased to be attacked by it now. Talk to us, ask us questions, wild dog based ideally, but if you want to ask us other things, that's fine. Not where I get my hair done, because obviously I do it myself. First of all, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Carol. Carol, we know that you have had some tremendous challenges of late with various medical things over the years, and you've been with us since 2013, and we think that you're about to get home after a very difficult time in hospital. So a quick shout out to you. We know you're a big fan of Quarantine and Konuma and their mother Karula, the Queen of Djuma, and a big shout out to you. We hope that you get better soon, and we hope that you will have no further challenges with your health, and that you will perhaps be able to come out here and rejuvenate your soul and your body and your mind, perhaps with a trip to the wilderness, and if not, the next best thing, keep watching Safari Live. It's lovely to have you on board with us, and please keep watching. Keep safe, keep strong. Okay, let's move on. We're going to move on to my favourite sighting. Well, my second favourite. It's a 50-50 call. Probably my almost favourite sighting of the week, a tiny little elephant. It happened on the morning of my birthday, my 23rd birthday. That's a foul and contemptible lie. But yes, it was on the morning of my birthday, a tiny newborn elephant. We're going to have a look at a clip, and I'll see you just afterwards. Take a look at this.
What a treat this is. That is a tiny, tiny baby elephant. I don't think more than a few days old, if that. So sweet. Oh, look. How she doesn't stand on it, I just cannot understand. Oh, look, it's got a little step to go down. What a treat. You can actually see a little bit of the umbilical attachment there on the little baby as well. Okay, it's just in front of us. Still pink. Still pink. Okay, she seems quite relaxed, so I'm going to turn the engine off. Oh, look at the little pink thing.
Wasn't that just very spectacular indeed? A beautiful, tiny, baby little elephant on my birthday. Wonderful birthday present, and just to see, especially that one little bit there that you saw where he or she, I always see little things like that as she's, walking and kind of tripping over her own feet, and amazing how the rest of the herd never looks like they're going to stand on the little one. And I always think that it must be almost impossible for them not to. They can't look down and see what's going on around their feet, and yet they just move around in the most amazing fashion. So I think that was a wonderful, wonderful sighting. Certainly the youngest elephant I've ever seen, actually, and I've been out here for quite a while. So very special. The leopard's calling again. You won't pick it up, I'm afraid, but the leopard is calling in exactly the same place it has been calling. So Brent, I think, is going to stay out there. Well, he doesn't have a choice at the moment because the car won't start. But if Rusty does eventually start, I think he's going to stay out there and see if he can't find that leopard. It's calling almost exactly in the same place as I first heard it, which is around Gallagher Waterhole, somewhere around there. Anyway, we'll wish him the best of luck. So that was the elephants, the youngest one I've ever seen. Beautiful sighting and just amazing. A little while later, I think it was that same night actually, some of our viewers who watched the Arathusa Dam cam saw 6 hyenas trying to attack that little leopard. And it's not a leopard at all, it's an elephant, that little elephant. And the herd, as they always do with elephants, got all the way around the little one and protected it from 6 hyenas. Voracious predators are hyenas, they're not only scavengers. Lions, they would have done the same thing, obviously a bit more of a threat because they're much larger, but that herd, you've seen from the number of elephants out here, and we hardly ever see elephants killed by big predators here. Elephants are particularly adept at looking after their little ones. So that was the elephants. Now, let us move on to probably my favourite thing, definitely Brent Leo Smith's favourite thing, as I'm sure you've seen him chasing them on the hunt. Wild dogs, we've had a wonderful time of late with a few wild dogs, and when we had Hayden and Peter here a little while back, we had an incredible experience, or Hayden had an incredible experience. Wonderful for him to come out from London, where he lives in the hustle and bustle of Pimlico in central London, and wonderful for him to come out here, drive along the Bifflesford Hook Cut Line, and see what we're about to show you now.
Folks, I don't know what to say. I just don't. Folks, I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. This place blows my mind. We just drove down this road, and Liam and I were just talking about the wild dogs that we saw down here about a year ago and how fantastic it was. And look at this. We've found the pups. Oh my goodness, this is just sensational. The pups. Oh my gosh. Now, I'm hoping that these are the adults belonging to this pack, or maybe they're not. Don't know if they've seen each other. Yes, they are. I think they're a little bit concerned. Here comes the pups. It's all about to happen now, guys. Listen to this.
You can hear, sorry, again, I'm going to get to that clip, wonderful sighting that Hayden had, but you can hear, they've just stopped now, the guinea fowl are going ballistic there. They're alarm calling. There's stuff going down there around where Brent and Rusty and the leopard are. Probably none of them moving very far at the moment. So, an incredible sighting there of the pep rally, as it were. That's the rallying call that the pups and the adults make. Now that's the first time we've seen those pups. There were apparently 13 when they were born. The average, I did a bit of wild dog research to refresh my mind today. The average size of a wild dog litter is between 12 and 21 pups. So 12 is not unusual. There were 13 in this one. 2 of them died, and this is the Investec pack. They've also lost an adult to a bite from a snake. Now, Jeannie, on the back end of that clip, you want to know about when the pups leave the pack, and I was doing a little bit of research on this as well, because I initially thought for a while that it was after not much more than a year. It turns out that that is not the case, and it's quite variable as to when they do and don't leave the pack. So in a small pack like this, I think what you'll find is that the least dominant members may remain in the pack for life. Now what that does is, because they're not dominant, they will not breed with each other, and so there's no problem with inbreeding. But what you will find is that the more dominant ones that were potential alpha and beta dogs, I think, will disperse. The males go off on their own, females go off on their own, probably not before they have helped to raise next year's litter of pups. So not before sort of 2 years. They only start properly hunting after 12 months. So while they are moving with the pack now on the hunt, and we'll show you a little bit of that just now, while they are doing that, it's unlikely that they will move off before sort of 2 years. And then Donna in South Carolina, I think you've asked me a few questions that have stumped me over the last few months, and this one comes some way to doing that. You ask the very salient and clever question, why, when they are so vulnerable, do they make such a noise when they meet up? Surely it would attract other predators. I think there are two things, or a number of aspects to this question that we should address, and they're quite interesting. The first is that the pups, of course, are not... I don't think dogs are as vulnerable as we think they are. They're vulnerable to disease. They're vulnerable to anthropogenic effects. Fences, they don't like. They get poisoned by farmers if they go out of the fences. They need enormous areas. So in the absence of man, they are still the third on the predator hierarchy and sometimes a second. So we've got the lions at the top, then the hyenas, then the dogs. And the dogs and the hyenas can swap depending on the numbers in their packs and their clans. So they're not that vulnerable to other predators. Now, that being the case, I think you'll find that rallying call, which is often begging, so that twittering that you heard initially, and you may have seen, I saw in the clip, there's one adult that looks like it's trying to be sick, and they're trying to regurgitate. What that squeaking is a bit like if you can think of a bird chick calling in the nest, trying to get the adults to bite into there. What happens is that the pups beg, they squeal like that, and then the adults regurgitate. So it's not just a rallying cry. I think there's a lot of begging going on in there, but I think that there is a certain amount of social interaction, and that will involve noises, but they're not as vulnerable as we think they are. If they're in the pack like that together, lions are their only real danger in the wild, outside of any other kind of anthropogenic effect. So I think, Donna, I hope that answers your question. Because I am alone tonight, of course, you may see me start to stare blankly at the screen like that, and that means that I'm hearing the next question. Normally we would then hand over to one of us, so I'm now going to stare blankly while I listen to the next question. Now, obviously you know I've just received a question, that's why I was staring blankly at the sky. Ellen in Arkansas, a good one. Do the parents know that there is a clear leader emerging amongst the pups, and how do they deal with that, and do they kind of show favoritism? I don't think they know. I think that they probably figure it out pretty soon. Now, we were watching the pups yesterday for a while, and it certainly seemed to me that they're now, they're almost sort of 3 months old. It seemed to me that there was in that play behavior, it's exactly like, let's think of human beings in a play situation, even at nursery school or a kindergarten school or into sort of lower primary school, which I guess is where those dogs are getting now. When you see little boys playing with each other, not so obvious with girls, but they're also doing it, little boys playing with each other, they play fighting and they're kind of boxing each other around, pushing each other over. There's a dominance display going on there. We're sorting out who's the strong ones, who's going to accept this, who's going to fight back, who's just going to cower in the corner, who's going to go off on his own, who's going to protect the little ones from the bullies. And I think exactly the same thing is going on with the wild dogs. So we watched them yesterday. One of them got up immediately when he saw a dove and he went off to see if he could catch it. The others ignored him completely. Maybe not a leader, but maybe an adventurous member of the pack. Then we saw them start to play, and we saw a few of them lying on the ground and being kind of dominated by the others. Then we saw others kind of sniffing on each other's genitals, and that's kind of a fairly submissive behavior. I think within the next month there'll be a fairly clear hierarchy amongst those pups. But remember, the adults are always going to dominate them unless the adults get very old. Now, very old, unfortunately, for a wild dog pack, any wild dog up here, 80% of the wild dogs in the Kruger National Park are less than 5 years old. That shows you how life is not easy for the wild dog around this area. I think before man it was probably a lot easier. Now, we have another clip of wild dogs to show you, and so rather than my staring blankly at the sky and the beautiful moon rising above us, what we'll do is go to that clip of the new other wild dogs. I'll pick up a few questions, try desperately to remember them, and see you back here after the clip in see you just now.
Oh, here we go. Hello, little guys. So I'm ecstatic. This is the first time I've seen these guys with the little ones. And it's amazing that they are completely free of a den already at this young age, and they travel with the pack.
This is such fun. Hello, little pups. These are just the pups. And there's an adult. Oh, look, they've chased an impala into the dam. Or Nyala. That's amazing. This is unbelievable. Look at this, everybody. You've got a great view of exactly what's going on. So the three adults, or two adults, are now streaming around. Now, what I predict is going to happen is that eventually that, what is it? Is it a Nyala?
Yeah.
Eventually that Nyala is going to become tired and will either drown. The hippo could attack it. I've seen that happen before. But I suspect, I'm afraid,
I'll let you know when I'm
the days of that Nyala are probably over.
Alright, great.
Little dogs. The little ones are just over here by. Hi guys.
What a sighting that was, and I know my voice got a little high-pitched at stages. It was because I was genuinely astonished by that sighting, and even with Rusty's troubles, we still managed to have an incredible sighting of those 11 dogs, that hapless Nyala, who I'm happy to say made it through the ordeal. You've waited out the dogs, and because it's warm, the water is probably sitting in around 25 degrees Celsius, pretty warm. The only danger in the water wasn't hypothermia, it was those hippos. And at one stage those hippos got pretty close, and then they backed off and left it alone. And eventually the dogs gave up. We turned the lights off, we don't shine the lights on dogs, and we were just listening and trying to see shadows and the odd sort of silhouette in the darkness, and we didn't see them, and then the dogs disappeared. Well, we think they disappeared. We turned the lights on, suddenly they weren't there. Turned the lights off, Nyala came out the bush and disappeared off into the night. So we like to think that Nyala had a happy ending. Now, a couple of questions here, which I'm going to do my level best to remember. Charlie, you want to know about wild dog diseases, or why they don't live for long, why they're so short-lived, why only for 5 years. And the main factor is disease. Canine distemper and rabies are major factors. Remember that the Kruger National Park here, and certainly, I mean, the only other area in southern Africa that they occur in great numbers is Hwange in Zimbabwe, big park there. All of these parks are surrounded by local people. Local people are very poor. There are no veterinary services in any of these areas, which means that their dogs carry diseases. They often are so desperate that they come into the reserves to hunt, what might be termed poaching, but in my opinion is just desperation hunting, certainly for the pot. And when that happens, wild dogs come into contact with domestic dogs, they pick up their diseases to which they have no natural resistance, and they fall prey to them. So that's one of the reasons. That's a major killer of wild dogs in Africa now. So as I say, in the absence of anthropogenic effects, wild dogs tend to be, I think probably would be a lot stronger than they are now. The second thing that takes them out are lions. Lions kill 80% apparently of pups that die in the Kruger National Park. Lions will kill that many. So a huge number do taken by lions. That's what I read. I'm not convinced that that is the case. I think they do get killed a lot by lions, but probably not quite as much as that. Then, an interesting one from Keith, and this is a bit of a bugbear, or has been amongst wild dog conservationists for many, many years. Wild dogs for many years were seen as terribly cruel, horrible killers, and because of that they were vilified. They were shot and they were poisoned and they were seen as vermin. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a wild dog kill. If you haven't, do yourself a favour. You'll find many on YouTube. They're very unshy about where they kill and how they do it. It looks gruesome. What they do is they'll get up to, say, an impala, those 3 adults there, they'll disembowel it very quickly. They grab it by the stomach, pull it, rip it open, the stomach contents comes out, the animal goes down, and they tear it to pieces. 9 dogs will eat 100 kilograms of meat in 15 minutes, so it's a huge amount of meat devoured very fast. Now, what you've heard, Keith, is that this is a very terrifying and horrible experience for the prey. No doubt, I've got no doubt that it's very unpleasant for the prey. I don't believe that they feel a thing. We know that when animals go into shock, they stop feeling. It happens so fast. From the time that that animal is caught by the dogs to the time that it's devoured, it's less than 10 minutes most of the time. From the time of them catching it to actually killing it is probably less than 30 seconds. In the case of very large prey, sometimes in East Africa they will take zebra and wildebeest sometimes. Here they don't tend to do that. They might take young kudu here. In fact, they do take kudu here. But even then, the death is within a minute. The animal is dead, and they're in such shock, I don't believe that they feel a pain. Andrew was just telling me the other day. Now, Andrew's one of the cameramen who's camping on Rusty with Brent tonight. Andrew was attacked by a chimpanzee a while back, and it did quite a lot of damage to his arm. And he said to me, we were talking about this exact subject, and he said he didn't feel a thing until afterwards. He didn't feel anything. He went into complete shock, didn't feel a thing, got away from what the chimpanzee was chasing him, and he didn't feel anything afterwards until the sort of rehabilitation took place. And I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same for an animal that's been killed by wild dogs. I don't believe it's the same for an animal being killed slowly, for example, by a cheetah that's got it around the throat, waiting for it to suffocate. I think that's probably a lot more painful, although I think there's a lot of shock involved, and especially I don't think it's the same for animals perhaps like buffalo, which are taking big buffalo bulls killed by prides of lions. It tends to take quite a long time, and I think it's probably a bit more painful. Certainly the death takes a lot longer. So Keith, in a roundabout, long-winded way, there's no need to worry that there's any kind of pain to the animal. Right, we have another question coming through. Oh, good grief. And totally off topic here, Yvonne, you watch MasterChef South Africa, and you say that you've heard about pup, chakalaka, and braais. Now, for those of you who don't know, braai is the South African form of barbecue. It's exactly the same thing. It is the cooking of meat on an open fire or some coals. Chakalaka is a kind of chili, mango, different kinds of things. So it's like a kind of relish, a sweet relish of some kind. And then pup is a sort of African polenta, if you like. It's a maize meal porridge. And you want to know, do we eat this kind of stuff in camp? Sometimes we do, yes. Many people have come out here while I've been guiding and have said, listen, we'd like to taste some African cuisine. There's an elephant. He's breaking a tree. I'm sure it's that bull elephant. I think apparently your bull elephant is on Djuma Waterhole. That's another elephant breaking something there. We should be okay here around the fire. If it does come closer and we run away into the darkness, you'll know why. So a lot of people have come out here and said, well, can we taste African cuisine? And the simple fact of the matter is that in this area, indigenous African cuisine is very few and far between, and that is not any aspersion on the local people here. It's a fact of life that the ingredients available for cooking out here are almost non-existent. There's nothing in the way of like a natural chili, natural salt or natural flavorant. So the food tends to be very bland, and most of the local people out here now use quite a lot of Indian influenced foods or Mexican influence. So they use a lot of chilies, North Africa obviously produced a huge amount of interesting cuisine, as did the Cape. When the Malays came over as slaves back in the 1600s and 1700s, they brought with them a lot of Malaysian cuisine, and that obviously added a lot of spice and flavor to South African food. But local cuisine here, pap, maize meal porridge, is an entirely tasteless affair unless it tastes like whatever you put on top of it. Otherwise it's like eating sort of thick white water. Chakalaka is a kind of stew, vegetable stew if you like, and that's what you put on the pap. So that's basically your answer, Yvonne. Now I'm going to play you a little song, and this song is not a South African song, but it was written in South Africa, and it was written in South Africa by, I think, one of the greatest American songwriters in history, and that is Paul Simon. And it was written by him about a chap called Joseph Shabalala. And Joseph Shabalala, who many of you might know, is the leader of the iconic and Grammy award-winning Ladysmith Black Mambazo. And they were put on the map by Paul Simon during his 1987 or 5 album called Graceland. And this song is called Under African Skies, and it's by Paul Simon from the album Graceland. Joseph's face was black as the night. The pale yellow moon shone in his eye. His path was marked by the stars of the southern hemisphere, and he walked the length of his days under African skies. Music was ringing round my nursery door. I said, take this child, Lord, from Tucson, Arizona. Give her the wings to fly through harmony, and she won't bother you no more. Joseph's face was black as the night, and the pale yellow moon shone in his eyes. His path was marked by the stars of the southern hemisphere, and he walked the length of his days under African skies. We'll see you tomorrow at 05:30. Well, with any luck. Rusty will be going. See you later. Stay safe, and thanks for watching. This is the story of how...